Hey everyone, it's Instructor Brooks, and if you're studying for the NPTE, then you got to know the black and white information. One of the things that's black and white are the developmental milestones and reflex integration. So as part of my battle plan to help people prepare for the boards, I have activities for students to do, but I've recently started making podcasts using AI and the information from my battle plan. So that's what this video is. It's an AI podcast talking about the information. It's a great way to listen on the go, and also a great way to just like absorb the information in another way. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. If you do, give me a like so I know that you like it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a video, because I'm going to have more and more of these podcasts coming out. So if you're ready to learn something, let's go.
Have you ever, really stopped to think about how humans develop? I mean, it's kind of amazing, right? You go from this tiny, completely helpless baby to, well, us, walking, talking, interacting. It seems so smooth, but underneath, it's just this incredibly complex set of steps. Today, we're going to dive deep into that. We're looking at the big physical milestones and also this fascinating hidden world of primitive reflexes.
And for this deep dive, we're actually leaning on some really solid material, excerpts from Battle Plan, Developmental Milestones.
Yeah.
He gives a super clear picture of, typical development, and it really details those early automatic responses the body has.
Right. So our mission really is to unpack all of that for you. We want to go beyond just what happens and when. We want to get into the why. Why are these first steps so fundamental for everything that comes later? Think of this as your shortcut to really appreciating that whole developmental dance. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's kick things off with the stuff you can actually see, those developmental milestones. As CC talks about them, Score Builders outlines them. They're like this series of, incredible achievements unfolding in a sequence. It's predictable, broadly speaking, but unique for every baby, right?
Exactly. And it starts really early, around 2 months. That's kind of the first checkpoint. So what you'll typically see is when the baby's lying on their tummy prone, we call it the tech, they can start to hold their head up a little. You'll see them moving their arms and legs, sort of exploring. But if you do that pull to sit thing, gently pulling them up, you'll still see some head lag. Their head kind of flops back a bit. And yeah, definitely in full support. If you try to sit them up, they can't hold themselves yet. It's all about those very first bits of control. Okay, then fast forward a bit to 4 months. Things change quite a lot by then, don't they? Especially upper body.
Oh, absolutely. 4 months is a big leap in strength and control up top. You'll often see babies propped up on their elbows, or maybe even pushing up onto their hands a little when they're on their tummy. And that head control, much better, more consistent. They might start reaching, swiping at a toy, maybe even starting to roll, sometimes just side to side, maybe all the way over. And if you sit them up with support, their head should be pretty steady by now. It's pretty amazing progress in just 2 months.
Yeah, it really is. And then 6 months, that feels like a real turning point.
6 months is definitely a game changer. Rolling is usually happening in both directions, back to front, front to back. And the big one, sitting unsupported. This is where you really see that independence starting to blossom. They might still lean forward a bit or maybe use their hands on the floor for balance, but yeah, they can often sit by themselves.
And then comes 9 months. More complex movements start showing up.
Definitely. 9 months is when things get more dynamic. So babies can usually get into a sitting position on their own now, maybe from lying down. You might see the beginnings of crawling, or maybe creeping on their belly first, or that classic rocking back and forth on hands and knees, getting ready to launch.
The pre-crawl rock.
Exactly. And this is also when they often start pulling themselves up to stand, using furniture or, your legs.
Right, holding onto the coffee table for dear life.
Precisely. And then you hit 12 months, 1 year. And you're really on the verge of walking. Cruising is the word we use, moving along furniture, holding on for support. They might even take a few steps between pieces of furniture. Often they can walk if you hold 1 or 2 hands, and sometimes just stand there for a second or two, totally unsupported. Bam. And it's key to remember, these aren't just isolated tricks. It's the whole system working together, balance, strength, coordination, all integrating.
It's just incredible when you break it down like that, isn't it? How each step, from just lifting their head to those first wobbly steps, really does build on the one before. It's like you're watching this invisible structure being built piece by piece.
Totally. And if the milestones are the visible structure, the building itself, then primitive reflexes. Well, they're like the foundational programming, the operating system maybe. These are involuntary automatic movements. They're there from birth, sometimes even before, and they're crucial for survival and just getting development started. But here's the critical part. They're supposed to integrate.
Integrate, meaning...
They fade away, or rather they become part of more complex, voluntary movements as the brain and nervous system mature. If they don't integrate, if they stick around too long, that's like having old buggy code running, can actually get in the way of later skills, cause real challenges down the line.
Okay, that makes sense. So these automatic things are good early on, but need to kind of get out of the way later.
Pretty much, yeah. Or become part of a more sophisticated system.
So let's talk about some specific ones. The asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, ATNR, that's the fencing one, right?
That's the one. You turn the baby's head to one side,
Uh-huh.
and the arm and leg on that side straighten out, while the arm and leg on the other side bend, like a little fencer, on guard.
Okay, I can picture that. So what happens if that one doesn't integrate properly?
Well, think about it. If every time you turn your head, say, to look at something, one arm automatically shoots out,
Oh, wow.
it can make things really difficult, like bringing both hands together in the midline activities. Think about holding a book, using scissors, even just feeding yourself. It can interfere with rolling smoothly, too. And visual tracking, trying to follow words across a page when your arm keeps wanting to extend. That's tough. It impacts coordination, fine motor skills, lots of stuff.
Wow, okay. That's a much bigger deal than just a funny baby reflex, then. What about the Moro reflex? That's the startle one.
Yeah, the moral. It's triggered by a sudden change, especially if the baby feels like they're falling, like their head drops back suddenly, even a tiny bit. Their arms fling outwards, that's abduction, and then they quickly pull them back in across their chest, adduction. Often they'll cry too.
Right, that big startled look. So if that hangs around...
If the Moro doesn't integrate, it can leave the nervous system kind of hyperreactive, like being stuck in a low-level fight or flight mode. These kids might be really sensitive to sudden noises, bright lights, quick movements. They might seem anxious, easily overwhelmed, or have trouble with transitions. It could definitely impact sitting balance because they're constantly a bit on edge. And those protective reactions, yeah, putting your hands out if you fall, that can be delayed or awkward.
And there's a startle reflex, too, similar.
Very similar to Moro, but specifically triggered by a loud, sudden noise rather than the falling sensation. Its effects, if it persists, are pretty much the same, impacting that sense of security, balance, and reactions.
So it's not just physical coordination, it's hitting emotional regulation and sensory processing, too. Huge link there. Okay, what about reflexes tied more to, like, feeding or basic movement?
Good question. The rooting reflex is a classic example for feeding. You gently stroke the side of a baby's cheek or mouth.
And they turn towards it.
Yep, they turn their head towards the touch and open their mouth, looking for the nipple. Essential for finding food early on. But if it doesn't integrate, it can mess with oral motor skills later, maybe leading to messy eating, dribbling, sometimes even speech articulation issues because the tongue and mouth aren't developing typical patterns. It can also affect head control, keeping the head centered, and visual tracking because the head always wants to turn to the side.
Okay. And hands and feet. I know babies grab your finger really tight.
Right. That's the palmar grasp reflex.
Huh?
Put pressure on their palm and bam, fingers curl in, tight grip. And there's a similar one for the feet, the plantar grasp. Pressure on the ball of the foot or toes makes the toes curl down.
So problems if those stick around, too.
Definitely. If the palmar grasp persists, it makes it hard to develop a voluntary grasp and release. Imagine trying to let go of a block or a right, or even just prop yourself up on open hands. For crawling, that's difficult if your hand always wants to clench. And the plantar grasp. If those toes are always trying to curl under, it can really interfere with standing flat on your feet. It affects balance, how you shift your weight, even the way you walk. Can lead to toe walking sometimes.
Man, it's amazing how specific these are, but how wide the impact is if they don't integrate on schedule. Are there others we should quickly touch on?
Well, yeah, there are a few more key ones. The symmetrical tonic neck reflex, or STNR, that one links neck movement to arm and leg movement differently than the ATNR. Like bending the neck forward makes the arms bend and legs straighten, while bending the neck back makes the arms straighten and legs bend. It helps them get up on hands and knees. But if it persists, it makes crawling, that reciprocal arm-leg movement, really awkward.
Yeah.
It can affect posture and eye-hand coordination too.
Gotcha. And the gallant.
The gallant reflex stroke along one side of the spine, and the baby curves their body towards that side. Helps with hip movement early on, maybe even during birth. But if it hangs around, it can affect sitting balance, posture, might even be associated with things like fidgeting or bedwetting, and potentially scoliosis.
Wow. And the walking ones.
Right, the positive support in the walking stepping reflex. Put a baby's feet on a surface, they'll stiffen their legs, positive support. Or they might make stepping motions, walking stepping, These are precursors, but if they don't integrate, they interfere with actual standing, balance, weight shifting, and developing a mature walking pattern.
Okay, so putting this all together, what's the big takeaway for someone listening? Understanding these milestones, sure, but also these hidden reflexes. It really gives you a whole new appreciation for just how complex early development is, doesn't it? It's way more than just watching a baby get bigger. It's like seeing this deep biological programming in action.
Exactly. And having that understanding is, I think, really powerful. It helps you see the building blocks. You can recognize why smooth, coordinated movement, even things like attention and learning, really depend on getting these foundations right. You start to see why a solid start in these early physical and neurological patterns is just so vital for, well, everything that comes next. Not just sports, but school, focus, all of it.
Right. So just to recap, we've walked through those visible steps, the milestones: head lift, rolling, sitting, crawling, standing, cruising. And then we peeled back a layer to look at the primitive reflexes: ATNR, Moro, rooting, grasp, STNR, gallant, stepping. These automatic programs that need to integrate properly, and how all of this together forms the blueprint for how we move and interact with everything around us.
Perfectly put. And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. Just consider how these seemingly simple, almost robotic actions early in life, the reflexes, the milestone sequence, how they form the absolute bedrock for every complex skill we learn later. Think about reading, writing, playing an instrument, sports, complex problem solving. What does the importance of integrating these early patterns tell us about that deep, deep connection between our very first movements and really our lifelong potential and capabilities? Something to chew on.